What should you be doing right before you head into the hospital? There's all these lists with like tons of check boxes of the things you need to do before delivery, but I'm talking those hours right before you go into the hospital. What should you be doing? Today we're going to go over it, and I'm so glad that you guys are here because I don't want you to waste that precious, precious time. And yes, over my 25 years in labor and delivery, I have seen how people are wasting that time and sometimes even making the worst of that time. So I'm totally going to save you guys from that. Side note, now this is just if you're going into labor. If you are going to the hospital for decreased fetal movement, totally should, if by the way, or like you think you have a UTI or things like that, then just head into the hospital. But this is like you think you're going into labor. What should you be doing at home? And obviously, anyone who's watching this video is term, which means you're past 37 weeks or past the point your doctor's like, I'm not going to stop you from going into labor, which may be 36 weeks of pregnancy. So just a side note for you guys. I just wanted to make that really clear because if you think something's wrong with baby or you think you're going into labor and it's far too early, do not pass go. Just go directly to the hospital. I was going to say go directly to jail, but it's not jail. It's just a hospital. Even though it sometimes feels like that. Okay, moving on. What should you do? The first one, and always my first one, if you've watched any of my videos, is to drink water. If you think you are in labor, my recommendation is to drink 2 giant glasses of water. So that's about 32 ounces of fluid. Yes, you are going to have to pee so darn much. Now, why would I say that? Number one, if you are just having dehydration contractions, which are useless contractions and nobody needs to be in pain for absolutely no reason, then water can often stop those. Number two, if you are going into the hospital and if you are planning on an IV, which is the majority of patients are recommended to have an IV in labor and delivery, that water is going to make your IV easier to put in. If you come in super dehydrated, it's just harder to put the IV in, which makes it harder on both your nurse, but also on you. So drink lots of water. It's going to help you feel better, stop those useless contractions, and make that IV easier to put in. And then moving forward, if you're home longer than an hour, I would say 1 big glass of water every hour moving forward. So again, you keep all of those great hydration benefits moving forward. It's good for YouTube videos too. Number 2, and this one is going to surprise a lot of you, but it is sleep. If there is any way that you could get some actual sleep, I'm not talking about resting your eyes like my mom used to do on the couch. I'm talking about actual sleep. That is going to fill up your gas tank the absolute best way. So lay down, see if you can close your eyes for a little bit. See if you can get any rest in. Even if it's just like 10 to 20, 30 minutes of a nap, it's going to be so great as you head into the hospital. Plus, it may help you to relax and let that baby just slide into the very best spot into your pelvis, which is always a win. So filling the gas tank, relaxing, which helps baby find their best spot, total win. And I do believe that sleep will help that oxytocin flow. I actually have a whole article on how to help oxytocin flow. I'm going to link it down below for you guys. And if you're thinking, Hillary, I am going to be freaking out. There is literally no way that I can sleep. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. There are thousands of couples who feel prepared and feel like, yeah, I could get a little rest in before I go to the hospital, and they end up having a better birth. And that is couples who prepare in advance. I actually have a birth class that I recommend. It goes over a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in here about how to do them better at home. I'm going to link that birth class down below for you, but I promise you, you don't have to be like running around with your head cut off when you go into labor. There is a better way. It just takes a little effort on your end. I will say the natural way, the thing that comes naturally to each of us in this thing is to run around with your head cut off. So a little preparation can avoid that. Next, you're going to grab those last minute items for your bag. Now, I recommend having those basic toiletries packed starting at about 34 weeks of pregnancy. For Hillary, that would include contacts, contact lens solution, and my extra pair of glasses, right? All of that would be in a bag because Hillary literally cannot live without it. I'm completely blind. But, you know, if you've got those basics packed, now it's time to grab those extra things. A lot of times these include like a bra, the going home outfit. Pro tip, I always say to aim for like 6 months of pregnant. You are not going to be as pregnant as you are now when you go home, but you are also not going to be tiny. So that's something to shoot for. A dress can always be great for that, especially here we are in summer in Phoenix. So a dress can be a good one for that too. And then a lot of times shoes, you've been wearing those shoes around. So sometimes sticking your labor shoes in your bag can be really helpful as well. In fact, I would make a list of the things you need to grab last minute because it's really difficult to entirely fill the labor bag. that you like keep at the top of the bag so you can just grab those things before you go. Of course, Hillary just felt like it was like bad juju to pack too much of my labor bag in advance. And so some of you may be packing pretty much the whole thing at this point in time. I actually have a whole labor bag packing list I'm going to link to down below in case you're packing the entire thing. No judgment here. Hillary did that exact same thing. The next one is to eat. Now, if you really don't feel like eating, that is a sign from your stomach that maybe you shouldn't be eating. But if you are a little bit hungry, I think some snacks can be awesome. In the online prenatal class for couples, this is actually something we talk about, snacks in early labor. And the dietitian that came on says that we're supposed to be balancing out our carbs and our protein. Things like a sandwich where, you know, you got like the cheese and the heated deli meat. Dang you. It's going to feel so good when you get to have a cold hoagie soon. Or peanut butter and jelly, string cheese and some fruit, or some nuts and some fruit, or milk, or something like that. So you're just trying to get some carbohydrates and some proteins, and usually that includes some fats as well. So just something small and balanced. Pro tip, do not eat a giant meal. This is not the time to get the double-sized burrito because you are going to see it again when you are in rip-roaring labor. So, you know, even if you don't throw up, you'll just be kind of miserable if you're super, super full from what you ate. If you are at home for a little bit of time, continue eating these snacks. And this can be a great thing for partners to make sure that you're still eating, not eating too much, but you know, they can just hand you the nuts and the string cheese or whatever. So that's a great one for partners. And it's something that we talk about in the online prenatal class for couples because this doesn't come naturally to most partners, but some simple tips can totally help them be a rock star to help you in early labor. And again, I'll link that class down below. The next one is to call your provider. Now, this is not necessary. If you know, you're like your water breaks and you're just heading straight into the hospital, you don't need to call your provider because your nurse will be required to call your provider once you come into the hospital. That's something that we just do for you. But your provider can be a great resource while you're hanging out at home trying to decide if it's time to go into labor. Most providers have somebody who's on for them 24/7. Now, this might be that you call an answering service and they have somebody call you back, or if you call them, they may say there's an emergency line and you might be able to talk to a provider that way. But they should have some way to like know your history, or at least you could briefly go over it on the phone. Your GBS status is going to be important, and any other issues that you've had during your pregnancy, you might have to review them because again, it might not be your provider. You know, your provider has to sleep sometimes, but a lot of times a provider that's on can take these types of phone calls. They can just be a great resource. And honestly, as a labor and delivery nurse for 20 years at the bedside, I could tell over the phone if it was time to come into labor and delivery or if staying at home could be a good option for you as well. Plus, they're going to know the traffic patterns around the hospital, some things about your circumstances. They can just take all of that and really give you good advice for you. I know a lot of people love to do the like 3x5 rule and how important that is, but I know a lot of you live a long ways from your hospital. And so talking with your provider can take all of those things into consideration. Don't hesitate to call them. They are happy to talk to you because, you know, if you come in early labor, they're going to have to see you in the hospital anyway. So talking to them over the phone is not a big deal at all. Don't hesitate to do it. The next one is to move. Now, I know at the beginning I said you should sleep, but when you are not sleeping, I recommend to move. Now, that might be walking around your house, packing your hospital bag, you know, but if you've gotten those things done, I think swaying while you're making some freezer meals can be really great. You might not have time for that, but one of my favorite things, and you're absolutely going to hate this, I hate it too, but it's to get on hands and knees and clean. Because hands and knees can be a really good position. Some pro tips is you can put lay on a stool so that you're balancing on your elbows rather than your wrists, because your wrists may be very tired towards the end of pregnancy. And of course, getting your partner down there with you. But it is a great time to clean your bathtub, clean your shower floor, clean anything on the floor that needs to be done. Hands and knees is just a great position to be in. And I'm always a fan if I can add something that needs to be done in addition to getting into the good position. So that's something that you can consider it as well. Of course, put something on your knees, a pillow, a gardening pad, something like that. But moving, different positions, this is a great thing for your partner to be involved with as well. If you just want to rest on the bed for a little bit, see if you can sleep, you know, every 30 minutes they can come remind you, hey, if you're not sleeping, let's get up, let's try some lunges, some hands and knees, things like that. And I gotta say that when you go into labor, if you get to this point right before you go to the hospital, it's really easy to feel like a deer in the headlights where you're like, I have forgotten everything I learned. I have no idea what Hillary on YouTube told me. Help, help, help. And that's why in the online prenatal class for couples, I actually have some labor movement cards that can be really helpful to keep you out of the deer in the headlights scenario. It's just quick reminders of how you could be moving and great reminders for your partner to help you move in this situation as well. I'll link them all down below. The last one is to throw a pad on. As you get into labor, your discharge is going to change. In fact, on today's videos that I'm supposed to record today is a whole video on discharge. So look forward to that one, or maybe it's already up. Imagine how magical a whole video on discharge is. I am so excited. But as it changes, just having a pad on is going to make you feel so much better. Also, I have a whole post on my website about the signs that your water might break. I'll link it down below. But the biggest sign that your water might break is that you are in labor. So if you're having contractions, personally, I would, if I'm like laying on my bed or sitting on the couch, especially the couch, I would have a puppy pad underneath me. And if you don't know what those are, I'll link one down below. But they're just absorbent pads that you can put underneath you. Should your water break, you are not going to be ruining your couch. Huge fan of them. And also, they're super helpful with kids. So even if you buy them now, they're still going to be helpful moving forward. Huge fan of them. I always keep some on stock in my house, even though my youngest child is well into her teens. So I just love them. And it's something that I would recommend doing if you're in those last few hours. Side note, if you love tips like this that people don't often talk about online, I actually have a whole insider tips series that I'm going to link to down below so you guys can come hang out with me for a few more tips like this. Now, I did want to tell you a couple things that you should absolutely not be doing. Number one is possibly to call your family. Now, everybody knows their own situation. Maybe you want your mom there from minute number one, but I know a lot of people who do not want their mom there from like minute number one, but they call their mom and then she just starts to like spiral a little bit, right? So sometimes not calling your family if you think you might be in labor but aren't sure, maybe keep that a secret to you and your partner for a little bit before you make those types of phone calls. Again, every situation is going to be a little bit different. I hope my daughter calls me right away because I will try and not be in a tizzy, but I could see myself spiraling fairly easily. The second one is to eat too much. We kind of already discussed that, but I just want to make a reminder that if you eat a lot, it's likely that you'll see it again or at least be uncomfortable as your uterus starts to contract and your GI system is like, why do I have all this food in here? Let's get rid of it. No, thank you. Let's just not eat it in advance. Snacks, great. Giant burrito, not so great. And finally, freak out. Like I said before, it's real easy to start spiraling yourself, right? And that might actually turn off the oxytocin valve and stop you from going into labor. People who prepare in advance have better labors and they are happier with the labor and they're happier feeling more knowledgeable as things are going on. They don't need to freak out. But like I said, it takes a little bit of preparation in advance. Now, this was the step before you go into the hospital. What happens when you get to the hospital? What happens at hospital admission? I got to tell you that Judy at the front desk can often be a little off-putting and can turn off that oxytocin as well. So I'm going to link that video about hospital admission up above. Thanks for joining us here on The Pregnancy Nurse, where we get you prepared, not scared, for your upcoming hospital birth.